On today's episode, it's Christmas Eve, and we're joined by Alexi Pianosi. Alexi is currently the assistant strength and conditioning coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He grew up on the rinks, and his drive and competitive attitude led him to reaching the heights of major junior hockey in Canada. Alexi is incredibly passionate about maximizing output in high-performance sport, and as a type 1 diabetic, he hopes to merge those two areas together. Join us as we go through it all.
I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues.
All right, sweet. We are live. So, anyways, we're here today with Alexi Pianosi. How you doing there, Alexi?
Great, thanks for having me on, boys.
Great to have you.
Yeah, we're really excited.
we're
Alexi,
pumped.
he's joining us from south of the border tonight.
Where exactly are you,
Are you in
Alexi?
Steeltown?
Yeah.
I am Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Lexi's a good friend of mine, and he is the assistant strength and conditioning coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins,
Hence Pennsylvania.
hence Pennsylvania. So we're incredibly honored for you to come on at the podcast. So you grew up in Halifax, Alexi. What was that like? Did you like it as much as I did?
I love growing up in Halifax. I still go back every summer, and honestly, I can't think of Halifax in the summer is one of the best places to be. You know, the winter can be a little depressing sometimes, but I'm sure winter everywhere is. But Halifax in the summer and Halifax growing up was unreal to me. I grew up in the South End where within like a 10-minute walk, I had 2 universities, 2 high schools, 2 junior highs, 2 elementary schools, the grocery store, liquor store, pretty much everything within a 10-minute walk. So couldn't ask for anything better than that.
You had everything you needed.
Exactly.
Right around the corner.
That's great. Well, I grew up on the other side of town, the West End, the rougher parts, the steel town of Halifax. Let's go with that.
I like it. We can make that work.
Why not? So you played competitive hockey growing up, and you excelled right into junior hockey. Why don't you kind of tell us about how you approached your game, so to speak?
So I was a defenseman, and some of you guys might not know listening, but I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I'm only about 5'9" or so, maybe a hair over if somebody wants to be generous. So I kind of had to play a little bit more of an offensive style. That was my thing growing up, and I ended up playing for the Halifax Hawks growing up, then going on to the Dartmouth Subways, then to the Moncton Wildcats in the Quebec League. Played a couple years in the Q, and then moved on to play at Queen's University after that, where I did my kinesiology degree, and it kind of progressed, all the way along from my minor hockey to my junior, and didn't really know life outside of hockey, and still don't, considering I still work in hockey year round. So a life without hockey, is completely foreign to me. Not going to a rink every day is I've literally never done that in my life. So I'm not sure what else I would do if I couldn't do that.
Oh yeah, life with no hockey is no life at all.
Exactly. Well said.
No life.
Absolutely. I want to take it back to the Halifax Hawks because Ben and I both played hockey growing up. I actually played for house
Did you
hockey.
play for the Hawks?
The Halifax House Hawks, baby.
Love them.
Yeah, I want to go back to that kind of environment that you grew up in, the kind of lessons that you learned, because I know Ben, he's actually coaching a team right now, the Halifax Hawks Pee Wee A team, and I'm sure he's as interested as I am to kind of learn about the things that you learned growing up playing, your whole life.
Yeah, it's interesting because the older I got, the more and more serious I became about hockey. The more time I spent doing it, the more I cared about it. Wanted to, maybe play professional or go to college and play hockey, stuff like that. So when I got to be late junior high, like high school time, I pretty much only cared about hockey in school. I was a pretty 2-track mind person. I don't even think I noticed girls at that point or went to a party or did anything like that. I basically went to school, tried to get good grades, and then played hockey, trained for hockey, ate smart for hockey. I was about as far on that sort of focused on hockey spectrum as you can get. I think that kind of slowly grew from when I was younger. I always tell people I'm from Halifax because that's where I lived almost my whole life. But I was born in Montreal and moved 6 months after I was born. I moved to Winnipeg, and I lived in Winnipeg for about
Wow.
6 years. I came to
No way.
Halifax, for grade 2 grade 2. I came to Halifax. But the thing about Winnipeg, or growing up in Winnipeg, was it's so cold there. You can basically have the best rink from October 1st to April 1st, and it just freezes solid for 7 straight months. So I was really fortunate that my dad was a pretty committed guy and went out and made a backyard rink for me. So I was on that thing nonstop, before school, after school, late into the night. We had floodlights on it. And then when we moved to Halifax, I still wanted to play on the backyard rink. So he desperately tried to build one, and we had one for a couple of years for sure. But that window of having a backyard rink in Halifax is substantially shorter.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah, if that.
When it rains every third day, that doesn't help either. Rain's not great for trying to build a rink. So I always just loved to go out there and skate and play. I played road hockey as a kid. For whatever reason, I always loved playing hockey, and it never really seemed like work to me when I was younger. But then you get to an age where I think it's okay to say that it becomes work. You still have fun doing it. When I was 14, 15, and 16, when I'm telling you that I had no life other than playing hockey and going to school, I enjoyed it. I was super happy and loved doing it, but I was this is what I want to do. I'm going to do whatever I can to. At the time, my goal was to play college hockey in the States. The pipe dream of going to Harvard and, going to med school and being a hockey player and maybe playing in the NHL, all that stuff was kind of the goal. And for whatever reason, it was a lot of work, but it didn't really seem like work. I really, really enjoyed doing it after, once I got to be 15, 16, 17 years old kind of thing.
That's amazing. Were you a summer hockey guy?
It's funny. There's so many spring hockey and summer hockey programs and stuff now. But when I was younger, there was one spring hockey team at each age level. It's called the Raiders. And the Raiders would pick a team from all of HRM. And there was 3 other teams you played against. One from PEI, the PEI Riptide. One from New Brunswick, the New Brunswick Stars. Ben, I'm sure you know these ones. And then later, actually, there was only 3 at the start. Then the Cape Breton Fire came into the league. So there was only 4 teams. That's it. So you're talking 80 kids. Now spring and summer hockey is 700 kids across all these, different provinces and HRM and everything.
Wow. That's as big as winter now.
There's 80 kids in every rink now.
It's insane. It never really stops. And the idea of, I remember the idea of strength and conditioning wasn't really a thing then. And you'd go to Lee Algie's gym. And you'd shoot pucks on a slide board, and you'd ride the bike and do bike sprints, and you'd maybe do some body weight jumps and stuff, because no one really knew what it was to train for hockey. But someone was you should probably just get in good shape, make sure you can move good.
Did you go to his clinics, his program?
Yes, that's where I first started. That was probably Adam. So in Adam, you're what, 10 years old, 9 years old? And, so you're not doing much, but I think at that point, it's more just about working hard. I work with some kids who are younger that age and are in a summer or summers past, and these kids don't have the hormonal response or capability to build muscle. They haven't even hit puberty yet. So what are you trying to teach them? Well, I just want them to enjoy coming to the gym, have fun, so that when you actually do come to the gym when you're older and you have to work hard and do stuff, you're not man, I hate this place. I remember doing this when I was 9 and it sucked. You're yeah, this is fun. I like coming here. Let's keep coming here. I think that should probably be the number one goal for most of those kids at that age. Maybe you develop a little bit of spatial awareness. Maybe you work on your vestibular system a little bit or some different movements, understanding how your body moves. But, have some fun with it and then make it so they want to come back. Then you're really going to have a kid who's going to be motivated to do the right things off the ice when he's 16, 17, 18.
Exactly, and that all instills good work ethic as well, because they come back and it's reinforced.
Absolutely.
And that kind of leads me to, I want to know where, you have an incredible work ethic. I've known you since, I didn't really know you in junior high when you were lighting up our Gators hockey team. What I was wondering is, I want to know where that work ethic was instilled within you.
It's a really good question. And, I was thinking about that earlier today. We've been talking the last couple of days about sort of topics of conversation for this and things we might broach on it. I don't have a specific memory of, or like my parents saying, "Hey, do this. You got to work hard to do this." Like my dad worked really hard. He was, he would come home. He would come home after like a 12-hour shift at the hospital, and he would play with us or flood the backyard rink. And like you can imagine, he was a physician, a respirologist. He'd come home at 6 or 7 o'clock at night after a long day at the hospital, and he'd play with us for like an hour or two, and then he'd put on his boots and winter jacket and go out in the backyard at like in Winnipeg -30, in Halifax -10, and just like flatten snow and put a hose on the backyard rink, so that when I woke up the next day at 6 a.m. or whatever, I could go play on it. I can't imagine he slept more than like 5 hours. And he was absolutely frozen, I would imagine, but he just kept doing it over and over again. So I think maybe little things like that, like that's some work ethic that's it's not really spoken. It's not like, hey, he's going to the gym and working hard, or he's grinding at this, but that's a different kind of work ethic that maybe just seeped in subconsciously to what I was doing. That if I was going to do something, I better work hard at it and try to be the best.
That sounds incredible. I mean, it seems to me like you were able to pick up a lot of what he was doing, and it just came naturally.
Yeah, I think the other thing about it too, and Mark can probably attest to this, but I hate losing. So if I was ever gonna like play something, I hate losing.
He's first in fantasy football right now, guys, and we all know it.
That's true. But I can't stand to lose. So if I was ever gonna play something, like I didn't want to lose. I didn't want anybody to be better than me, and so the only way I knew how to not let people be better than me was to like just try to get better myself. So that it's a very cliche thing to say, like work harder than the other people. I don't think I thought of it as like working harder than them. I just thought about like try to be better than them. If I can shoot the puck better than them, or skate better than them, or score more goals than them, then that makes me better. But how do I get there? Well, I guess I have to practice skating, shooting, and one dot will connect to the other kind of thing. And I don't think I really overthought it. I just kind of, like I said, had a 1 or 2 track mind and just kind of did it.
I think a lot of kids would be envious of that lifestyle. I mean, it sounds like it was incredibly fun, but you definitely benefited from it as well. So that kind of leads us into junior. What did you go in the draft, and what was it like at that point in your life?
So I have a pretty interesting draft story, actually. I told you that my whole life was kind of centered around playing college hockey in the States. So I was playing midget for the Dartmouth Subways, and my marks were good in high school at QEH, and I'd written the SSATs, I'd written the SATs, get all my sort of applications ready for U.S. colleges, and went down to a couple tournaments down there, had some interest from 4 or 5 schools down there. I actually committed to going to a prep school in Connecticut called Salisbury Academy. So I went there, I had my courses picked out, I was all set to go there, play 1 or 2 years, and then go to college. And I had a really good year that year for the Subways. We won the provincial championship, we went to the Atlantic final, a couple individual awards, and the junior teams were calling, and I just kept saying, don't want to play, I have no interest in playing junior, I want to play college. Like, this is all I've wanted for 4 or 5 years. So that was kind of, I thought it was going to be over at that point. I was pretty clear about what I wanted to do. And then the night before the QMJHL draft that year, which I don't even know what year would have been my draft year, probably 05 would have been my draft year, my first one, but I actually got picked in the 06 draft, I think. So the night before the draft, I get a call from the coach at the time of Moncton Wildcats, Ted Nolan, coaching the NHL a little bit for the Islanders, Buffalo Sabres. He had just coached the Moncton Wildcats to Mem Cup host and Mem Cup final, which they won the Q that year. They lost in the Mem Cup final to Radulov and the Quebec Remparts.
Was that when Marchand was on the Wildcats?
Yep. But anyways, Ted Nolan called me that night and, talked to me about Moncton and stuff like that, and laid out why it would be good kind of thing. And even then I was like, you know what, I've thought this through, like I don't really want to play, but thank you very much for the call. So the next day is the draft, and I get a call again. This time it's from the draft floor, and it's the owner of the Moncton Wildcats, Robert Irving. one of the brothers that owns Irving Oil and Cavendish Farms and Majestic Tissue, all that good stuff. So he calls me and says, "Oh, we want you to come play Moncton," all this stuff. And this is from the draft floor. And I'm like, I'm also 16, keep in mind. So, this is pretty cool. And I still say, I'm like, I really appreciate the call, but, I got my mind made up kind of thing. So I'm like, all right, great. This has been like 2 months of this kind of stuff going on. I'm like, all right, it's finally over. Like, this is draft day. I think that was their last-ditch effort. So they picked somebody else, ended up being a guy from PEI, Randy Cameron.
I know Randy.
Yeah, I figured you probably know Randy. So they picked Randy, and I played with and against Randy growing up. So they picked him.
Detroit draft pick.
He was a Detroit draft pick, yep. I think they picked him in the 3rd round, was their first pick because they had just hosted. They traded away everything. So then their 5th round pick comes up, and I'm not even paying attention anymore. So I get a call again from Mr. Irving, who says, "We just picked you. We're going to come down to Halifax next week to talk about it if that's good with you." And I was like, well, okay. I mean, can't hurt to talk to them, see what they have to say. So that happened. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got picked. It was the 5th round. They didn't waste a high pick or anything like that. They know I'm not coming, but we'll see what they have to say. So the next week, Ted Nolan had just left to go take the job at the New York Islanders, and they're waiting to hire their new coach, who ends up being John Torchetti, who a little bit of NHL experience. He was an assistant coach of a couple different teams. He won after he ended up coaching me. He ended up winning a Stanley Cup as an assistant with the Blackhawks. But he'd been around the NHL for 7, 8 years, something like that. So good coach coming in. They rent out a conference room at the Lord Nelson Hotel in Halifax. And that coach, John Torchetti, is there. Mr. Irving is there. Their head scout at the time, Donnie Matheson, is there. There's this little smorgasbord of tracksuits and jerseys and synergies. And keep in mind, this is 2006, so
Yellow ones?
It was actually the SE had just come out. It was the one with the blue
or red
Right,
bottoms.
yeah.
right? So they bring those, and they're like, here's all this stuff. And again, I'm 16, so I'm thinking, holy crap, this is cool. This is great. So they give me the presentation. This is how we bill it, people. This is our facility. This is, everything. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, it's only started June, sorry. And training camp doesn't start till middle of August. So I got tons of time. So I start to think about it. I start to ask some other people about, what should I do? And at the time, I went to a couple people that I trusted, within the hockey world, and I basically just asked them, do you think I can play in the NHL someday? Because I'm thinking if I'm going to go to college, get a degree, that's great. I'll be set afterwards. If I don't get a degree and I try to make the NHL and it doesn't, come up short, where's that going to leave me? So I go to 3 or 4 people, really good coaches that I respect, and they're like, yeah, we think you can make it. You're good enough to make it. So I'm thinking, okay. Everybody tells me that, more people get picked out of junior, the, Canadian Hockey League than any other league. That's where pros get developed. If I'm going to try and make the NHL, which is what I want, then I got to take my shot and play junior. And at the same time, I was very fortunate that the ownership group of Moncton was able to give me a school package that in the event I didn't sign a pro contract, I would have money to go to a Canadian university. And at the time, my dad was working at one of the most prestigious medical clinics in the U.S., the Mayo Clinic. My trainer at the time, Andy O'Brien, was working with some of the best NHL players in the world, and he had gone to Western University, and my dad went to University of Toronto. So I'm thinking these guys are both, doing awesome, doing what they love. They're at the top of their game, and they both went to Canadian universities. So, going to a Canadian university, if this NHL thing doesn't work out, is not a bad, it's not like a crappy second prize. You still get a great education. You still have good opportunities. So at that point, I decided, it was middle of July. We got all the contract stuff dialed out, and I decided, let's give it a shot. I'm going to try and play junior and see if I can make the NHL. And I ended up playing in Moncton the next year when I was 17. So that would have been when 07, 08, I think.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Very well thought out.
That's funny because we've seen that theme across a few episodes of you just jumping in and saying, you know what, why not? Let's do it.
But definitely weighing your pros and cons.
I don't know how it exactly works with the NCAA, but were you were universities down there, are they allowed to contact you at that age? I don't know.
Yeah, so I had been in contact with some of them. They couldn't at that point make a formal offer. But, the few that I liked and the few that I was talking to, I think something along those lines was coming shortly after had I not made that decision. So that was, I felt pretty confident that not going to junior, I still would have been able to get a good school and a good hockey program and been able to continue playing hockey and getting educated that way. So that kind of helped me in terms of, trying to get that school package set up for me at Canadian University after, because if I was going to give up going to, a top flight U.S. university, then, I was able to guarantee myself a university at a Canadian university degree instead of that. What's kind of cool about that is before I got the job here in Pittsburgh and started working in the NHL, I obviously worked in Halifax, ran my private business there, and I worked with a lot of players who were that sort of bantam, midget, junior age. And so right around that age, there's a lot more kids in Halifax who are good hockey players now, and they have to make that decision, college or junior. And I always enjoyed sort of having that unique perspective of, hey, I went through it. I remember talking to those universities. I remember talking to those junior teams. Here's my decision. Here's why I made it. Here's what I think about my decision, 3, 5, 8 years later. Was it good? Was it bad? Would I do it again? Would I not do it again? So it kind of gave me a unique perspective to talk to those kids and those parents about, like, I know exactly what you're going through. Here was my thought process. Here's what I did, and this is why. But you have to make, the decision that's best for you with, the information that you get.
I'm just curious, given that was, we're getting old. That was almost 10 years ago, and the NCAA league has progressed leaps and bounds since then.
Yeah.
Would the decision, if you had to make it now, would it have been that much easier? Would you have gone to a U.S. college?
College hockey is booming right now.
Right.
College hockey is booming, and again, that's the other question I get a lot. Would I go back and change my mind? And my answer is always the same. I wouldn't change my mind because for me right now, it's hard to look back and I don't think I have any regrets in my life. If so, very few. Like the people I know now and the people I met in junior, at Queens, at, everywhere I played, coming back in the summer, there's a chance that I go to prep school that year, then I go to college somewhere in the U.S. I don't come back to Halifax. I definitely don't graduate from QEH. Me and Mark may not be friends right now. If I don't graduate from QEH and we, keep that friendship going. And I could say that about 10, 20 other people, my junior teammates everywhere. So it's hard to look back and say, I would change my mind when I would not know and not have so many friends and good experiences and good memories that I have now.
Did you play all 4 years, junior?
I played 3 years. So I went in, I played 17, 18, 19. And then I actually played my overage year in junior A in Ontario, just north of Toronto in Aurora.
I didn't know that.
I didn't want to play in the AUS.
I remember you were a little reluctant.
Yeah, it was nothing against SMU or Dal or UNB or anything like that. I'd been to Halifax. I'd been to all those places. I wanted something new. I wanted a different province, a different city, a different experience. So I thought going out west or the Ontario or something like that would be a better way to get a new experience than frankly, I don't know how people come to Halifax, play junior for the Halifax Mooseheads for 3-4 years, and then stay in Halifax for another 4 years at SMU or Dal or something like that. Those are great schools and great hockey programs, and Halifax is an unbelievable junior city. I personally put a lot of value in getting new experiences. And if you're just staying in your same social circle, in your same apartment, in your same neighborhood, then are you really maximizing your personal growth at that point by staying in that comfort zone?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's something we've also been talking about is just branching out the amount of things you can learn from new experiences. And if you don't do that, if you don't put yourself out there, you really never understand, or you'll never really be able to figure out your true potential. So, as you mentioned, your last year of junior, you spent in Aurora. Did you transition right into Queens after that, or was it a bit of a process? Did you take any time off?
No, I went straight from Aurora to Queens. So I was basically going in as I was 21, my first year university. So Everybody in my program was 3 years younger than me. I never lived in residence. I went straight into an apartment with two other guys from the hockey team, like two other rookies, and that's another like really good story there about why I would go somewhere else. But we got three guys that didn't know each other. We had a goalie from Manitoba, a forward from BC, and a defenseman from Nova Scotia. So we literally hit all three positions, and we hit all three. You hit the middle of the country, the West Coast, and the East Coast, and we got stuck together randomly. And we lived in the same apartment with the same three guys for 4 years.
That's amazing.
Really?
And I went to one of their weddings was 2 summers ago, and I went to his wedding. I was the MC of his wedding. The other guy got married last Christmas, almost just about a year ago now. I was unable to go because we were on the road in the middle of the season. And, I'm getting married next summer, and they're...
Congratulations.
Can't wait.
Thanks, fellas. So that's like, I went right into Queens and lived in an apartment with two guys I didn't know, but being part of the hockey team, you have 20 friends automatically. So I didn't need to go to the social or the events and stuff like that for freshmen to meet new people. I did meet new people through my program, but I had a pretty large social circuit just by being a part of the hockey team.
Yeah, and especially at Canadian universities, I think the average age of the hockey team is a lot higher than the average age of the other sports teams.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I'm the norm.
You were probably young.
To go in at 21. Most
Yeah.
people play their overage 20-year-old year and then go to university at 21.
Yeah.
Like Jody Shelley was like 35 when he played for Down, though. No, he didn't. He was like 22.
I coached these two younger kids when I was in Halifax, and their father was a lawyer in Kingston and Toronto. He had offices in both cities and would kind of go between. And he was the oldest player in OUA history, I think, because he did his undergrad, stopped, went to law school somewhere else, and then transferred back to Queens for like the 4th year of his law degree, and played for the men's hockey team in the 4th year of his law degree when he was like 35 or something like that.
And he hadn't played the previous 3 seasons.
Yeah. So I don't, because you get 5 years of eligibility, so he used 4 in his undergrad, and then did something for the next 8 years, and then came back to finish his law school and played OUA men's hockey with the boys.
That's great.
That actually is incredible.
Oh my! So as you said, you went right into Queens. You didn't take any break at all. I guess what I'm wondering is, when did you realize that's what you wanted to do? You wanted to go to Queens. Did you took kin?
I took kinesiology. Yeah.
Yeah, and did you kind of have an idea of the direction you wanted to take after that?
So I was actually already training people at that point. I started in the summer of 2008 with one group of 1996, 1995, 96 age kids in 2008, training them 3 times a week out in the Beasley Field in Dartmouth, doing some fast feet agility stuff.
What's that? We got a small business owner here?
Well, what do you know?
Imagine that. And my thing was to make this binder for them where when they were with me Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we did stuff, but they had exercises to do on Tuesday and Thursday at home. So I gave them a binder with the workout plan, some exercise tubing, because these kids were only like 12 years old. And that was the start of me working with people in the summer. And then that one group grew to 2 groups the next year. And then it got to the point where I had to start working with some of those kids in the gym. They needed to start, lifting weights. And at the start, I was just bringing a couple kids into St. Mary's. They were a lot less strict back then, and just kind of doing personal training with some people at St. Mary's. And one thing led to another, and that business just kind of grew every year. So by the time that I got to Queens when I was 21, I think I'd already been doing it for about 3 years. And by no means was I a full-fledged business. It was a summer thing while I was away at school playing hockey. So when I went to do my kin at Queens, I had a pretty good idea that I really liked training. I really liked high performance. I really liked the science behind it. Kinesiology was the logical step for that.
Was it always kin growing up?
No, I wanted to be a doctor like my whole life. So even when I was picking out my major at Queens before I went there, I looked at kinesiology. I looked at like human physiology. I looked at like a pre-med program because the training is what I thought I wanted to do, but I wasn't like 100% sure that I could do that full time as a career, like only do that. Because at this point it was only just a summer job, and I was like, I want to keep doing this. I'm going to keep trying to get better at it. But I didn't envision, my goal at that point wasn't to open a gym or to work in the NHL. It was just to kind of, train hockey players kind of thing and, make some money doing that. And
Well, that's good though, because you didn't you didn't trap yourself. You didn't say, oh, well, I need to get to this point. You're like, I have all these interests and these skills, and I'm going to see where they take me.
Stayed very present with it.
Try to. And so once I started my kin degree, I was working with people back in Halifax in the summer. I was sort of part-time training a bit of the guys on the hockey team. Later in my third and fourth years at Queens, I wrote our summer program and I wrote our in-season training and some stuff like that for the team just because it was, practice for me, a chance to do more and learn more. And that was my goal at Queens at the time. And it probably wasn't until after my degree. I graduated in May of 2014, and I had just that year obtained Italian citizenship and an Italian passport. So I am an Italian citizen with an Italian passport.
Yes, I remember the commemorative tattoo.
Yes, exactly. There's an Italian flag somewhere in that tattoo. And I obtained that passport so I could go play hockey in Europe. So my plan after graduating was to go play hockey in Europe and use my EU passport to increase my marketability, not count as an import, and hopefully drive up my quality of the league and my salary. And I trained that summer. I worked that summer. I'd literally, train with the guys at 9 a.m. to 10:30, and then I'd shower and I'd run right to a field or run to another gym and train other people. And then it kind of, I was talking to an agent, like there was some offers in like the second or third division in Finland. There was an offer in Italy. And it got to this point in August or end of July maybe, where I realized that I wasn't so much excited to go play hockey in Europe as I was to like see Europe and have hockey just kind of pay for it. Like, it's a cool experience. Go live in Europe, go play hockey kind of thing. But I wasn't really excited to play hockey. And that's, in my opinion, that's fine. At that point, I just kind of thought to myself, all that fire and all that passion I had for hockey was from a player's perspective, was kind of gone.
Yes, dissipated.
Yeah, but I really liked training guys and getting them ready to play hockey because I draw a lot of similarities between, like, I'm not the one doing the sets and reps, but the same way my goal was to win the provincials, make the NHL, score X number of goals, win this, win that. Like, now it's other people that have those goals, and it's still, I consider myself part of that process of them trying to reach it, which makes it, again, I'm still working with hockey players every day, going to a rink every day, and working to achieve a goal, which is basically, like I said at the start, pretty much the only lifestyle I know. So if I had to like sit behind a desk and sell insurance or be a banker or like do anything else, I have no idea. I don't think I'd be able to do it. I need that some sort of focused goal that, we're working towards or trying to help people.
And the constant innovation. And I think to touch on your point, when you wanted to go to Europe because you wanted to see Europe more than play hockey, well, now you get to go to every NHL city.
Yeah, very, very underrated part of the job is seeing all those really cool cities. But the one thing I forgot to say was actually after I graduated from Queens, I applied to a master's program at McGill in real cool research group that does, it's called the Ice Hockey Research Group. So they do biomechanical research based solely on hockey. So really cool program. And my thought was to, go do my master's, put that on the resume, learn a little bit more about the sports science side of things. But after I got accepted and after I started to work with people, I realized that I didn't want to spend the next 2 years of my life collecting data and like looking at Excel spreadsheets. I wanted to spend it like with people. and coaching people and talking to people, not being in a lab or my face in a book. I just been in undergrad for 4 years, and I didn't want to take more tests and write more papers. I wanted to just like coach and be around athletes and players and teams and stuff like that.
Yeah. You wanted to finally apply what you've been learning all those 4 years.
Yeah. And so that's when I decided to come home, and I remember a couple rocky weeks, like at the end of summer when all my summer clients were finishing up, and I was like, okay, so I don't have a job for September. How do I do this? And I started to just reach out to some people. I ended up working for a hockey or a sports school as their sort of dry land coordinator for 2 years. And then for whatever, I guess call it good fortune, I ended up later in the season, like start of October, I ended up sitting down with the Mooseheads general manager, Cam Russell. And, they had been looking to add a different strength coach, make a change in that area. And I was obviously back in town now. And I had worked with Nathan McKinnon for a while, who just graduated from the Mooseheads. So there was a bit of a connection there. And I was fortunate to start working for the Mooseheads like halfway through October. And that whole rocky 3 weeks of, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I don't have a job, ended up turning into working for the Mooseheads and then maintaining some personal clients and working for that school. So it ended up working out okay, despite my few weeks of being very concerned for my future.
Seems like at every turn you were faced with a few options, but it always worked out in your favor. You seem to persevere very well, but obviously faced with a few options along the way, but seemingly chose the right path.
Yeah, and to be honest, there was, I think the number one thing about that, and like for people that are in that situation and are, maybe unsure of what's going to happen, like, again, it's a cliche thing to say, but like I would just say, keep working hard. Like that luck or those chances come from working hard, and depending on what field you're in, like for me, it was basically train anybody who wants to be trained at whatever time. So there was a 3-4 year stretch of my life where if somebody texted me or called me or a parent called me and said, hey, can you see my kid? Hey, can we train at this time? Yes. Oh, I have plans tonight? Not anymore. I will train you. Yes. What time? When? And those summers were filled with like 14, sometimes like almost 16-hour days. I'd start my first client at 6, and then just because of kids' schedules and availability, my last one would finish at 9. And I'd go home and get to bed at like, 10:30. And then I'd get up again at like 5 the next day to start all over again. And that was and I didn't really have breaks, didn't really have any opportunity to eat lunch or anything, a lot of bars and a lot of coffees, and just tried to work with as many people as I possibly could, thinking that, all right, well, if I build goodwill with the people that I'm working with, if people leave me saying, wow, that was great, he did a really good job, then you get enough people saying, wow, that's great, he did a really good job, and you're probably going to get somewhere with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the strength and conditioning world has grown just massively in the last 10 years. So when I went to Lee Alges, there was a small amount of thought on technique just so people didn't get hurt. But the whole point of Lee Alges was to work hard. That was the whole point of the hour you were there. And now it's transitioned to a point where, strength and conditioning coaches are analyzing biomechanics and nutritional patterns and trying to support hormonal levels and trying to change the style that people, create a certain movement or a movement pattern. It's much more sophisticated now than it was back then. And I think that's just a natural progression. You get a lot of smart people doing this kind of work and taking an interest in it. And back then, to answer your question, I had no idea. I didn't even know I wanted to be. I just had fun working out and sweating and shooting pucks. And, to me, it was a way to win more hockey games and get better on the ice. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. Like, whatever it was. I didn't really know exactly how it was going to help me or why. But I think I had fun doing it. And that was probably the earliest, start for why I enjoyed training or why I liked training.
How you're merging. Well, maybe we talk about how you are diabetic, and well, that's just another thing that that you've had to face growing up, especially
Overcome.
as a hockey player. And overcame as a hockey player. And more recently, we've kind of seen those role models. The Max Domies and the who's the NFL player?
Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler, our boy Jay. Yeah, so you see it a bit more often, and people are talking about it now. You've mentioned that you're kind of trying to merge some science behind it with your high performance sport training.
Yeah, it's two things I'm really passionate about myself. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 13, I think, maybe 12. And it's just after my Pee Wee year of hockey. So I don't honestly remember not being diabetic. So it's kind of just part of my life now. I've had it for 16, 17 years, something like that. And high performance training is something that's obviously very important to me, and I love learning more about that and finding new ways to give our guys the edge or my athletes the edge, or how we can sort of streamline that process a little bit more. And going through junior and university and even midget before that as a type 1 diabetic was really hard, because you're trying to maximize your strength gains in the gym and your cardio gains off the ice. You're trying to maximize your performance on the ice. You're trying to recover after games to play another game. And so much of that is based on sort of the metabolic and hormonal responses within your body that are going on. And so now with non type 1 diabetic athletes, we try to address those hormonal variations or fluctuations. We try to address those different things that maybe can create a positive change or help somebody recover or help somebody feel better or more in a better position to play. But when you're a type 1 diabetic and you don't produce any insulin and everything that gets broken down to sugar just sits in your bloodstream and you can't do anything about it, that's like a car that doesn't have a steering wheel. All the pieces are still there. I still look like a human being, but you're missing a vital part to maintain that kind of homeostasis, that normal functioning kind of thing. So you're trying to be like, all right, well, I got this steering wheel here, which is, say my insulin, but how do I make it work harmoniously with the rest of the car? And there's lots of research out there. There's lots of great doctors doing some pretty cool stuff, but trying to work so hard to control my diet, my pre-game meals, my post-game meals, my everything, and then having, eating the same thing 2 days in a row, and then giving the same amount of insulin, but one day my blood sugar goes up through the roof, and the next day my blood sugar drops really low and I can't play. Sitting back and thinking, well, I just did the exact same thing. Why did I get a completely different result? So when I was younger, I didn't know what was happening, but now that I've learned more about it, and I'm still in this boat, but now I know that there's just such a complex interplay between the individual variations of diabetics and how those hormonal levels fluctuate based on the food you ate the day before, the amount you slept, how much coffee you drank, do you have stress in your life, are you fighting with your girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, are you, how can you expect someone to make these really important, potentially life-saving or life-altering decisions every day when it's constantly changing? So I struggled to optimize my performance. I was harder time maintaining my body composition. There was times when I'd have to sit out shifts or a period because my blood sugar was low and I couldn't play at that high of a level. My hand-eye coordination went away where I couldn't handle a puck. And you're like, well, I'm trying so hard, but this is still happening.
Well, that's
It's kind of scary.
well, it's got to be so taxing to wake up and not know what kind of day your body's going to give you.
I don't want to paint a grim picture because technology's come a long way, and I live a pretty normal life, and I'm able to do 99.9% of what I want to do. So it's not. There's definitely people with much dire situations and straits. So I wouldn't want to compare my situation to theirs or anything like that. But it's a very unique challenge, much like a lot of other things that if you're not a type 1 diabetic, it's really difficult to explain to somebody else. And it's really difficult to explain what it's like to be high or be low or trying every day to get better. But you take diligent notes, you do this, you do that, everything's great. But It's like studying for a test, and you know the material. All right, the test is going to be on chapters 1, 2, and 3. So you study your ass off on chapters 1, 2, and 3. But then you come in to take the test, and the teacher says it's on chapters 6, 7, and 8, and you're like, well, I just did so much work for this, and now it's just nothing to do. Like, how am I supposed to deal with this?
It's all for nothing, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a unique challenge. So my goal is to, both from an intellectual curiosity perspective, learn more about it for my own life, but also to help some of those athletes who might be struggling with those same things, because it's frustrating, and because I honestly believe it hinders performance. It's always depressing when you sit in a university class and they start to talk about being a type 1 diabetic. I don't know if you guys have ever been in one of those lectures where they tell you that you have like a 40% greater chance of heart attack, 40% greater chance of stroke, 40% greater chance of going blind or having macular degeneration. You basically have a 40% greater chance of everything possible.
I did not know that.
I didn't either.
So it's a bit of a bummer when you stop and think about it that way. But if you can control it well, then you can definitely not only live longer, which is huge, but hopefully peak your performance a little bit better,
And it's funny because I think you talk about regulating that, you can transfer that directly into regulating every other part of your life.
Absolutely.
And staying on top of things.
And that's, I think the one unique thing about it is that as much as there's days when I absolutely hate diabetes and I hate having it, it has made me a very, very detail-oriented and focused person. I can't just grab something off the table, eat it, and run. I have to think about those implications. I give myself insulin, 5-6 times a day when I eat. And I have to do the mental math of what did I eat? How many grams of carbs? What did I do before? What am I doing after? What am I doing tomorrow? And doing that process 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 times a day for 18 years, that creates a certain amount of diligence and focus that I think has positively helped me in other aspects of my life. So I think I would have preferred to develop that without having diabetes.
Right. Yeah.
Having diabetes has definitely, in some regards, made me has helped contribute to, I think, my conscientiousness, not just as an athlete or a strength coach, but as a friend, as a partner, as a brother, as a son, like that as well. It seeps into your life in a lot of other ways that it kind of becomes a part of who you are. Sometimes it's for worse, but there's a few occasions when it's for better.
Yeah, you've definitely been able to harness this and use it for the better for your pursuits now. So take us to present day. Where are you at with the Penguins?
So I'm in my second year with the Penguins. My role is the assistant strength and conditioning coach. So typical day for me, it's interesting because you basically only have 3 different kinds of days. You have game day, you have practice day, and you have an off day. And it just kind of repeats itself over and over again. And I have no idea the days of the week because it used to be like a college or a midget thing. You'd play on Friday or Saturday. So you build practices, then you play Friday or Saturday, you have Sunday off. Well, an NHL schedule has no pattern. You'll play Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, then Monday, then Wednesday, then Friday, and there's no real rhyme or reason to it.
No rhythm.
You factor in that travel and the hotels and the late arrivals, and you basically, like I said, just have 3 days: game day, practice day, and off days.
It's a dog.
So a game day, tomorrow we play the New York Islanders at home, and hopefully by the time this gets put up on the web, you can say, yeah, that was a great game that they won. But we play the Islanders at home tomorrow, so I'll get up around 7, go into the rink for about 8:15. Make sure the gym is sort of prepared for the guys to come in for morning skate. Our morning skates are typically optional, so majority of the guys skate, probably 14 or 15, maybe 4 or 5, 6 stay off the ice. Those guys might need a variation of different warm-ups, mobility drills, activation. Some guys might be dealing with injuries. Some guys might be dealing with smaller injuries that they're playing through, but we need to stay on top of from a rehab or preventative perspective. So we're planning out our day, trying to help them get prepared in the morning. They go out and skate. Post-skate, if anybody, again, needs that nutritional support, physical support, stretching, activation, maybe it's a little bit of a a lift to create some, nervous system activation. Then they go home, they do their afternoon nap or their walk, whatever each guy prefers. And then around 4 o'clock, start to prepare the nutritional strategies for each guy for their in-game hydration. Warm-up hits, and those guys have all their different warm-up routines, making sure everybody is mobilized, activated for different reasons in different ways for each guy. And then once on-ice warm-up hits, it's pretty much go time, and whichever players are healthy, scratched, or injured or at that time will be working out during the first period. So myself and the other strength conditioning coach, Alex Trinka, will be leading those workouts with those guys to keep them sharp if they ever get called upon, or if it's a rehabilitative process, helping to further their return to play. And then second period, just kind of watch the game. Third period, start to prepare the post-game workout. We usually lift after most games, and then make a few shakes for the guys after their workout. And then
are they all customized?
There's a few customizations. We have some pretty good products that we recommend to most guys. So I'll make sort of 8 or 10 of the same ones, and then a few guys might have some dairy sensitivities or some gluten sensitivities or allergies to nuts or seeds or things like that. So there's a couple people we have to make some specific stuff for. But for the most part, it's a little bit less individualized. And then by the time you know it, you show up at 8:15 and it's 11 o'clock, and you get to drive home and probably get up the next day and do the same thing again.
I don't know how you do it. I mean, it's incredible the schedule you must upkeep.
Yeah, that's a part I didn't see coming. Like, I love my job, and it's so challenging and so much fun from a variety of reasons and ways, but there's definitely challenges. It's a long schedule, and,
And you also have this outside fact of, like, if a hockey team's not winning, then the whole organization's like, we're not happy.
Yeah. It can be a hockey team or a sports team in general can be
sports team.
can be a pretty miserable place to be around when your team's not winning. It's probably the most fun place in the world when you are winning, but when you're not winning and you're struggling, then it can be a pretty miserable place. So trying to find ways to get that work done and accomplish what you want to accomplish can certainly be a challenge.
Mm-hmm. It's tough.
Seems to be a pretty good vibe this year.
That's where my Devils are at right now.
I don't even, to be honest, I don't know where the Devils are. We've played them twice, I think. Once in Jersey, once at home. Yeah, so that's a game day schedule, and then practice days. Practice days are a little bit different because, standard practice is at 11 o'clock. If it's the day after a game, we practice at noon, you get more time with guys. They're less based on their routines. They're less superstitious on a practice day than a game day. They don't have their set things they do in a row, so you get a chance then to work on. Hey, Mark, I know your right hip's been bugging you a little bit. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if we can work around it, do some exercise, just some modalities to help support that, get you feeling better. And, we usually make a list, 5 or 6 guys we want to hit on and talk to, and we want to do this with this guy and that with that guy. So practice day, you get to do a little bit more hands-on work with the guys and try to go through that educational process of here's what's going on with your body, here's why we think it is, here's how we think we can fix it. Try doing this, we'll incorporate this. If you move, maybe this way instead of this way, if we get more activation here, calm this down, maybe we can make some positive change. So those practice days can be very beneficial from that perspective. But again, if you've ever looked at an NHL schedule, there's actually not very many practices. We're approaching a period where, so we practice today, but in the next 13 days, I think we have 1 practice, maybe 2. Just because we're either on the road, flying, or playing, basically every second day. It's a pretty crazy schedule. We just don't get any time to practice.
That's insane. When do you get any work done?
Me or the team?
The team. I'm sure you're always full of work.
You find a way.
Yeah, you find a way. 6 in the morning till 11 at night.
Practices are longer at the start of the year. I think they kind of taper in length towards the end. And these guys are really good players. They know how they're supposed to play. There's some minor tweaks that have to come, but you're not teaching anybody D-zone coverage or how to forecheck, how to back check. They know what they're doing, and if anything, a practice is more just about making sure you feel good physically and mentally. When you have a good practice and you're snapping the puck around and it feels good on your stick, you're going to feel confident the next day. It's less about, hey, Ben, I want to work on your backhand. Let's go take 100 backhands today. Just, these guys are all pretty good. There might be some of that.
Yeah.
But, you think about it this way. Teams that go to the Stanley Cup Finals play for 2 months straight in playoffs, basically, almost every second day. A lot of those days in between, they don't practice because they're trying to conserve energy, rest. Maybe they practice for 15, 20 minutes. And again, you're not trying to teach anything. By that point, you know your team, you know what you have to do. It's just do whatever you can to make yourself, your body, your team feel good.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine over 2 months, you practice probably like 6 times, and then you play 4 series. Unless, of course, you sweep someone and you're waiting for another series going to Game 7 to end. Like it's a little bit different than you would expect in terms of the sort of practice to game ratio. 82 games is just so many games with travel. You don't have the time to practice. You don't have the energy to break guys down and have really long, draining practices.
Yeah, that would just be counterproductive.
Grueling. It's nice that they can just work on their bits when they need to, but obviously have enough skill that they can display that in a game.
Yeah, just maintenance throughout the season, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what we, in the off season, our goal is a lot of times is to make more significant changes, whether it's, biomechanics during movement, whether it's adding strength, losing some body fat, improving cardio, whatever it is. During the season, again, they're playing so many games. You can't do You can't do a workout that's going to cause some major soreness or muscle breakdown because they're going to have to play probably the next day or the day after. So, it's about those little micro doses you can input during the season to work on these smaller things to help them in small ways that hopefully, you add up those little 0.5% and it makes a difference down the stretch.
So now, is it fair to assume that with Sidney Crosby being the best player in the world, he gets the most attention, or who does get your attention most?
You know what, we try to just prioritize based on need. Obviously he's a very important player for our team, so we want to make sure he's feeling good. But his work ethic speaks for itself in the sense that he doesn't require that much work to maintain. He does the work himself.
Yeah, he probably doesn't have much oversight, does he?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely oversight, but we're there to help him, and he knows, that he's an incredibly intelligent person, both intellectually and even more so from a hockey perspective. So he knows his body, He knows the game, he knows his team, and for the most part, he knows what he needs, and we're just there to, help guide him or support him or in small ways. And it's like that for most guys. It's not a situation where these 5 guys make the most money, so we're going to give them more attention, or these guys make the least money, so we don't care about them, or this is a 7th D versus a 1st D. A lot of times it's trying to figure out, if I got to see 2 people at the same time and I can only see one, okay, who needs the help more? Who is at a greater risk if we don't work with them right now? Or who can work independently, who can't? So it can be challenging because everybody warms up at the same time. Everybody gets off the ice at roughly the same time. So everybody always wants to do things at the same time. So finding ways amongst ourselves, myself and Alex and the other people working with the players, you try to find ways to fit it in as much work as you can in their busy schedules. Because sometimes all you get is, 5 minutes extra before the game or 15 minutes after practice before they have to run home to their family or go to a media interview or a community event or something like that.
Seems like it's a very busy schedule. Go, go, go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's go, go, go from different perspectives for players and staff. Like players obviously have the responsibility of playing well when it comes to the game and, recovering and using their time effectively to make sure they're in a good place to play. The staff, we have to make sure that we support all of those guys on that journey to try to get there, whether that be talking to them, nutritional consultations, extra workouts in the gym, extra recovery modalities. It could be a whole different ways that we help them, but ultimately we're responsible as the staff for those 24, 23, 22 players on our roster and helping them get to a position where they can play their best. Once they get on the ice, it's their job to play their best, but it's our job to make sure that we put them in a situation where they can play their best and they're more likely to succeed and hopefully have some sort of competitive advantage over our opponent.
Very cool. Okay, well, before we let you go, just out of curiosity,
Here we go, some Pittsburgh Penguins questions.
right? Like, what's your favorite rink?
My favorite rink?
Yeah,
Ooh, that's a good question.
I was going to go with favorite city on the off day, but we'll get to that.
yeah, we'll get to that. It's Vegas.
I
Chicago.
think I'm going to say Vegas.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
I was going to say Montreal, but
You know, Montreal's cool. The intro of Montreal is really cool. I did like that. But Vegas, man, Vegas just... I'm curious to go back this year. Vegas, the energy there was crazy.
When are you guys going? When do you guys play them?
We play them, unfortunately, on a back-to-back. The last day before bye week, January 20th or 19th.
the last day before bye week, you're in Vegas.
The second
Are
end of
you
the
kidding
back-to-back?
me? Will anyone make that trip home, or is everyone stationed there?
I'm guessing the plane won't be as full as when it took off when it heads home, but we'll have to wait and see.
Keep an eye on Matta, would you?
That's amazing.
I'm coming back to Halifax then, though, so I'll be back in Halifax for our bye week from the 21st to 25th or 6th kind of thing.
Okay, sweet.
That is awesome.
We'll be here.
Nice. Can sit down with the brand new View boys in person.
Exactly. That was awesome.
But seriously, what is your favorite city on an off day?
I think my favorite city on an off day.
Chicago.
We're going on we leave on Friday to play Ottawa, New York Islanders at Nassau, and then Chicago on Wednesday. And we get Tuesday off, and not off, but like a practice day, an extra day in Chicago on Tuesday. So that's actually our father's trip too. So all the dads will be on.
Oh, nice.
And you know, the Penguins are great. My dad's coming. All the staff members get to bring their dad too. So
That's incredible.
my favorite city, I really like going to DC.
Yeah.
We played them in playoffs last year. We played them like 6 times during the regular season, so we get there a lot. But my first time there last year, I'd never been, and I walked around for about 6 hours through all the, you know, Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, around the White House, around, like, it was really cool to see all that. And then our hotel is like less than a mile away from Georgetown, which is one of the coolest little neighborhoods I've ever been to.
When was the moment you knew you were going to move on from playing yourself and fully commit to pursuing a life after hockey within hockey, so to speak?
I think that moment, like kind of what we talked about before, that August of
That was when it hit? Okay.
when I was preparing to go over to Europe.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
That was an interesting transition, right? Because it's like you wanted to play, but then it just kind of fell in your lap, and then before you knew it, you had those 3 obligations with the Moose. How long did you train McKinnon for?
slowly dwindled. Like I was much less hungry to play in my third year university than my first year, and less in my fourth than my third. So by the time I was done, like my drive just wasn't there anymore. I was inspired by other things, and I think that's fine. You always see those big retirement letters and people posting stuff about, you know, moving on from hockey or whatever sport to the next part of their life. And that can come, in my opinion, that can come at any point in time. You can, you know, as soon as you stop feeling that's what you want to do most and you want to do something else, I think like you owe it to yourself to go and do that. And at that point, like all I pretty much knew in my life was playing hockey. I trained some kids for like 2 or 3 months in the summer, but my life was structured around what time of day is my practice, when's our next game, is it a home game, is it a road game? My life was hockey. So to leave that obviously is a big deal and go into something different, but if your passion's doing something else, then go and do that. And you know, there's very few people who make a smooth transition. Some people think my transition was very smooth, but like I said, like I was kind of stressed out about not having a job for a little bit. I worked with some kids that could barely stand up, and I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Like, why am I, you know, and it's not, you know, oh, I want to be working with pros. I want to be working with really good players. Oh, this guy's the next Nathan McKinnon, this guy's the next this player, like he's going to be so good. And I'm working with the midget A high school kid who thinks he's going to make the NHL but can't skate backwards. And I'm like, oh God, why am I doing this? But at the same time, it's a process to get to where you want to go. And even now, like I said, I love my job and I thoroughly enjoy doing it, but I'm not particularly satisfied just, with status quo. And people always ask me too if I have a plan, like where do you want to be in 5 years? And I don't know. I don't have that plan. The only thing I kind of focus on is I want to get better at what I'm doing now. And if I keep getting better at it, then I'm probably going to be somewhere better in a year. I'm probably going to be somewhere better in a year after that and a year after that if I keep getting better at it. I don't know too many people who get better at something and move backwards in their trajectory of that, path.
Yeah.
It's a great mentality.
Yeah, like I have that conversation with people I work with. I have that conversation with my fiance about, hey, where are we going to be in 6 years or something like that? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like my goal isn't to ascend the ranks of the Pittsburgh Penguins and be the head guy, or move back to Halifax and do this, or transition over and work for another team, or open up a hockey school somewhere. My focus right now is pretty much just solely on become better at what I do. Mm-hmm. And if you're better at what you do, and if you're better than other people at what you do, people are going to want to work with you and people are going to seek you out. And that's going to create the opportunities that allow you to, whether it's grow your small business, grow your resume, grow your experience, and help you progress to whatever's going to be next, whether it's along the same lines or a slightly different path in the same field.
Yeah, and I think you always just kind of focused on the task at hand. Whatever it was, you're just going to do it and keep going. And it's funny you mentioned that so someone asked you where do you see yourself in 5 years, and you didn't like that one because we established that's just bullshit on an earlier episode. That's such a restrictive way to see things.
Yeah, like I think it's good I definitely think it's good to have goals, and I definitely think it's good to, have something to shoot for. Like, hey, your goal is to, get to 1,000 iTunes subscribers, and we're going to do whatever I can to get to that. That's great to have that goal, but, if you're going to limit yourself and define yourself solely by I'm going to get to 1,000 subscribers, then I think that approach and the results would be a little bit empty, in my personal opinion, because the process along the way of getting to those 1,000 followers, like I think you'd miss things, or you might miss out on maybe doing a better job than you did because you were focused on something else.
Yeah.
That's not to pick apart your guys' podcast, because it could transfer over to anything. Like if I focus on just being, a head guy at an NHL team, or focus on making this salary, or focus on working in this city, or opening this gym, or working with this client, if that's all I care about, then everything that I need to do to prepare myself for that opportunity, I'm probably not going to be as focused doing it and trying to get to that point as if I just said, every person that I work with, I'm going to try to change them a little bit. I'm going to try to leave a positive impression. I'm going to try to get better at coaching and being a strength coach today than I was yesterday. And if I can do that 365 times in a year, then I'm definitely going to be closer to whatever that goal was that I had.
Right.
Than if I just said, all right, I got to get there. I got to get there. I got to get there.
Well, that's exactly. And
it's an incredible way of thinking.
It's the same goal. It's like you said, it's 1,000 subscribers either way, but it's just a different way of looking at it.
And we're going to get 1 million.
Not to mention, that's the fun. The process is the fun part.
Right? Exactly. So many people get caught up on the ending. Like there's this grandiose finish line out there, and there isn't.
Let's say 2 years from now, you guys have 10,000 subscribers, and you have a party to celebrate it or something like that, and you remember that moment when you were staring at the computer and somebody, became the 10,000 subscribers. That's going to be a cool moment. You're going to remember that. But I feel like you're going to think back to a couple dozen opportunities when, man, do you remember we were doing that interview when the mic broke and we had to do this, and like, oh, do you remember when we started and like we were in Ben's house, and now we're in this, studio with real sound systems and stuff like that. Like, that process of how you got there is going to be so much more fun. You're going to have so many better memories and personal moments of growth and enjoyment from that process than just that moment of hitting 10,000 subscribers and being able to say, hey guys, I have a podcast with 10,000 subscribers. Yeah. Like the process is the whole fun. And, the goal feels great, and it's good to shoot for it, but the process, I think, in my opinion, is what, if you focus on and you make it about the process, then I think you're going to get a lot more out of it.
Well, that's what life is. It's the process.
Was that something that you had to learn, or was that something you always had?
I think that's something I had to learn, because as an athlete, you're really drawn to just, wins and losses, goals and assists, all these statistically driven things. But, it wasn't until I started maybe to train people more seriously and realize that creating change can be very difficult and can be very time consuming and can be very laborsome and take a long time. And that process, going about that, like, I can't even tell you guys the number of times like an athlete's been pissed off at me or been frustrated at the process because, like, man, we're still doing this. I don't feel like I'm any better at this. I can't do this. Season's 6 weeks away and I'm not doing this. And it's like, I get it, like, but trust the process. It's not to go all Philadelphia 76ers.
Joel Embiid.
But,
Joel.
Trust that process and enjoy the process, because I think you'll find, again, I keep kind of going back to that same message, but like when you set out a goal for yourself and you say, this is how I'm going to do it, even if you lay out the steps usually don't go in that order. And it's all the little steps between the steps where you learn things that ultimately, when you get to that goal, are the reason why. It's not just that, you did drill A, drill B, and drill C that got you where you wanted. It's that you failed at drill A and you figured out that if you don't do this and do this, it works better. And then you fail at this and you say, I didn't do this, I did this. Okay, that works better. And all of that put together helps you get to your goal. And along that process, that's where you really get that growth and that understanding and that improvement that you can look back on and be really proud of.
Someone dropped that mic for him. I think he's just actually speaking through his Mac, so don't drop your Mac.
I'll expense a brand new MacBook Pro to a brand new view, okay?
You got it. Business expense.
When you find that expense report, please give it to us too, because we definitely have not used it.
I mean, that's pretty much it from my end, Ben. Is there anything else you wanted to add there?
Well, no, I definitely want to thank Alexi for coming on. His stories were incredible. It's amazing to see where he's been able to come in such a short period of time, and not to take anything away from the work that he's been able to put in, but it certainly is a testament to that. And on behalf of my co-host and I, that's it for Brand New View. Until next time.
I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. With the same old blues. With the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me. I was the same old me. I was the same old me